Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Here.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to table resolution 24-229. It's my understanding there's still some details that we're waiting on. I also think that given the length of the document and the fact that the public has only had a few days to see it, it would behoove us to postpone that to the next meeting.
Do we need a second?
Second.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the revised?
Maybe roll call on.
I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes,
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
and then I have one more motion I wanted to make to amend the agenda, and that would be to table the approval of the Short Hills Business Organization bylaws. The reason being the bylaws that were provided to the public did not include a black lined copy. And that's something that I actually had to request for myself. I think that when we're gonna make changes like this to existing bylaws of a quasi township organization, we ought to provide a black line copy or at least an explanation of what the changes are so the public is aware, because they shouldn't have to go through and diff the documents themselves.
Wasn't there only one change, that one sentence? I mean, we could certainly talk to it. That was the only change.
It was, but I think it's just in the interest of transparency and, you know, to make sure that we're doing things in an open and transparent manner and to limit the ability for people to criticize us, you know, for not being transparent. I think we ought to provide that. It doesn't really take any extra effort to provide that black line copy.
So Deputy moved that. Is there a second?
Is there a second? No. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the revised agenda tabling 24-229?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports. Deputy Mayor, you want to go first?
So the planning board has started considering an application for 165 Old Short Hills Road. That's a process that's likely going to take a while. I bring it up simply because I know it's been contentious and concerning to those, a lot of people in the community. The next planning board meeting, that will not be discussed. It's tabled until November. So I just wanted to put that out there. Make sure you check the schedule if that's something you're interested in following. The Environmental Commission is continuing to hold information sessions on the Open Space Trust Fund. So check the Township website for information on when those sessions are. And I encourage everyone to, if you haven't attended one, please attend. That's it.
Committeeman Purpose?
No reports.
Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. Recreation Committee, winter registration's begun. That includes rec and travel basketball, wrestling, indoor pickleball, badminton, STEM classes, and adult open gym, basketball and volleyball. New programs have been offered this winter, arts and crafts and others. They're also excited to announce the return of the Shawnee Ski Program, which is open to all 6th to 12th graders for residents. Special Improvement District, budget introduction at the September meeting of the SID board. Executive Director Grillo presented a draft of the 2025 budget. If it's approved at the October annual SID meeting, it will be presented for introduction by the Township Committee at our November 12th meeting. Prior to the annual meeting, the budget will be shared with all affected property and business owners as well as public 48 hours in advance of the meeting as required by law. The budget will have some new data, and this is really we've put in place a lot of KPIs, key performance indicators, and measurement tools to see what the efficacy of that SID is. This weekend, last weekend, this past Friday night, we had a special performance by the Jersey Boys from the Paper Mill Playhouse. Thanks to the Paper Mill and to Explore for coordinating that effort. It was fantastic and very well attended. This Saturday at Township Plaza, October 5th, there's going to be an outdoor movie starting at 7 p.m. It's Beetlejuice. And then Bull and Bear Brewing from Summit will also be serving their craft beer from 6:30 to 9:30, and the Scream Truck will be selling ice cream again, which always seems to be a huge hit. That starts at 8 p.m. There's also a tour of the town social campaign on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not sure if you guys are following it, but it seems to be going very well. Lots of hits and visitors. They had 9 businesses and have another week of content recorded and scheduled for the next week. Then they have a 3-week waiting list for other businesses to participate. Board of Education Liaison Committee. The big update in the beginning of this is the discussion on the grounds in the back of the high school, behind the baseball where the jungle gym is. We have an architect's proposal and a finance facilities committee work with the joint committee facilities or committee to figure out next steps. We actually have a in-person meeting on the site to discuss it. Alex, October 18th or so. So we'll be on site doing that, and that's where we're going to try to turf it over and make more fields for everyone. Joint fields we just discussed, emergency dispatch, nothing new there. Flood mitigation, we did a big review last meeting. I'll have an update next month. Affordable housing, I'm going to defer to council. And then in the other piece, I just want to make sure that on the board today that we discussed that we have a consensus to raise the Israeli flag on October 17th in solidarity with all of our neighbors in Israel, our greatest democratic ally in the Middle East. It'll just be up for the day. I'm doing that on October 7th. 7th. That's it. Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen?
Well, sure. Deputy Mayor Sacramento covered the planning board, and yes, we didn't even get through completing the first witnesses testifying, so this will be a multi-meeting event for certain. The Arboretum held a very successful cornhole fundraiser on September 22nd, I believe it was that Sunday. And they had 27 teams. Everybody had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day, and we'll be looking to do that again next year, and perhaps even one in the spring. We're currently planning a Halloween event for families at the Arboretum, where there'll be trick-or-treat stations throughout the grounds. More to come on that. The library held a community picnic event last weekend, and despite the rain, it was very well attended. They are estimating somewhere about over 300 people came, and everyone had a good time. It was a good community building effort at the library.
It was very nice. I just want to thank the Atlantic Federal Credit Union. They're holding a food drive for the pantries. They started today. They are also a sponsor of Explore Melbourne Short Hills, so I just wanted to give them a thank you. And that's all I have. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few brief reports. Just a reminder to residents that their work by PSE&G up in the Long Hill, Tioga, Rolling Hills area of the township, Deerfield section, has begun. This is again continued gas infrastructure replacement, and we will be working with them once the project is complete about restoration of the area in conjunction with the township's 2025 road reconstruction projects. Just wanted to let the public and township community know that there was an enforcement detail at the intersection of Whittingham and Ridgewood. And there were 45 stops with 35 summons issued last week. There is a reminder to residents that leaf collection is starting mid-month. The leaf collection schedule was sent out to every resident in their tax bill. And if you don't have that schedule, you can always get it on the website. I also have a few that I'll put out here for anybody that wants to grab them at the end of the meeting. The township, in conjunction with the Historic Preservation Commission and the Arboretum, have now successfully put a barrier-free or ADA accessible ramp into the Arboretum. And we worked very well with the Historic Preservation Commission to get that accomplished in quick order through their minor work review committee. And it was a pretty seamless project. Quite honestly, I think the concrete just got poured. It's tinted so that it has a good look to it. And just a reminder to residents about the fire department open house that will take place on October 19th. Again, it was originally scheduled for the 12th, but it has been moved to October 19th. So you can find all that information on our website and as our social channels, and just continue to encourage people to follow us on social medias and the website.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Just a brief fair share housing update. Late in the afternoon today, the appellate court ruled on all the pending motions in our fair share housing case. There were two substantive motions and one procedural motion. The procedural motion was granted in favor of the township, but both substantive motions were denied. The substantive motions were the township was seeking a stay of both court orders. The appellate court denied the stay, finding that the township failed to demonstrate an entitlement to relief. No written opinion, summarily denied it. And the other issue that was before the appellate division was whether or not we had an appeal as of right or the appeal was interlocutory. Typically in fair share housing, and the difference is when a case is over, everybody in Jersey has a right to appeal. Interlocutory is when the case is pending, do you have a right to go to the appellate division? It's a hard burden to show because cases would just go on and on and on. If every time the court ruled, you could just go to the appellate division. We felt very strongly that that one, it was a final order because we weren't given our final compliance and repose. Immunity was stripped, and there would be no way for us to get our final compliance and repose. So essentially, the court ordering us to enter into the redevelopment agreement and the pilot agreement essentially ended the case. But the appellate division disagreed with us and found that it was an interlocutory order. And denied our relief to seek leave to file an interlocutory appeal. So the appellate division said once there's a final order in the case, it'll take, we can then bring our appealable issues to the appellate court. So I've reviewed those orders with this committee and closed. They just came out late this afternoon. We're still looking at all viable legal avenues. But at this point, the court has denied both of the township substantive motions without argument and both summarily without a written opinion. And if there's any questions from the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening, Jeffrey Feld. First, to all the citizens that will be celebrating the Jewish holidays, Lashana Tova. Because during the next few weeks, we all transcend history and get back to stand with all generations at Mount Sinai. My questions first on the agenda items. You have various closed executive session meetings prior to this regular meeting. Are those closed executive sessions meetings recorded, or are just minutes taken? I mean, they're not recorded. I mean, people shaking their head, I think records know that they're not recorded. As to the bill list, again, it's I get bi-monthly request of who monitors the work product and time summaries of our professionals. Since the last meeting I received, redacted of the June time summaries, and it's weird that 2 different law firms were giving Oprah advice, and this town spent money trying to delay the production of the reports that were produced to the special master in the affordable housing case to me. Again, I renew the request that we create a pleading library. So like the orders that were just entered, that the public can see what the appellate division ruled, because it's very important about us to the affordable housing because it's an interlocutory order. At some point, I will have a right to appeal what happened at the the fairness hearing, where the court denied me a right to question the witnesses. And that was the time when Judge Gardner said he never told the town that they could not tell us the terms of the settlement. As to the SID bylaws, it was interesting in the report, there was not announced that the November 12th trial date has been canceled. The case has been assigned to the 7th jurist, Aldo Russo. We had a little virtual case management conference last Monday. Because of my history with Mr. Russo, I will be filing a motion for him to recuse him. Because he represented Orange, he did such a great job that the FBI raided their city hall, the public library, and some various other opinions that he defended with that I was smoking crack, but I think time has showed that I wasn't. As to the appointment to the people to the Fair Share Housing Committees, can you tell us the number of applicants to each district and what metrics were used to appoint them? And again, I thank you for postponing the Woodmont for at least 2 weeks so the public can look at that template and compare it to the Uptons and to the Wells Fargo, because that template will be used, I guess, for any says. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good evening, David Cosgrove, a resident. A question for Mr. Cantor based on the report, the litigation report. Is there anything pending now before the appellate division? Anything left? And the second on the contract, I left some comments for you there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Carrie Heller, resident, I guess property owner as well. 2.5 years since I've been here. I do listen. I comment, well done in terms of your dialogue, communication, not necessarily always in agreement. I think perhaps we could even be doing more, but I think you're doing a great job in terms of communicating professionalism, not necessarily agreeing upon party lines. Among other things, and the reports, just a lot of good information also coming out. Thank you. Not an agenda item, but something that was on your agenda last meeting. Town Hall. For many years, there's been a contemplation that this building is obsolete, derelict building, probably fits many of the criteria within the redevelopment act. Jared, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's 8, perhaps. Obsolescence, there's about 8 of them. This building fits about all of them. The process that we've gone through, or you've gone through, or Alex and his staff has gone through to renovate versus do new, I don't agree with that process. The building and the employees here deserve a new building. It doesn't necessarily deserve a renovated building, and it's not just about cost alone. There's efficiencies, both in the building, the size, the height, the location, certainly the cost. I know a little something about renovating. Been doing something for a couple of years on the corner and keep finding new and unforeseen things. This room perhaps is going to stay as this room, conference room. Maybe it's gonna get bigger, but a lot of the offices, the stairwells, elevator, a lot of things don't change in a renovation, and you're stuck with the size that you have. I was taught 35 years ago, there's two reasons to renovate a building. One is to get around zoning, and the other is to save money. So we're not really saving money, and we're not really getting around zoning. So the question is, why is the building being rebuilt here in this location? There's many locations from next to the library, whether it's DPW at some future date. Why 2 stories rather than 3 or 4 stories, whether including it into a fair share housing, whether synergies with, I think, just about every building in town, public building, city building, police department, fire department, rescue squad, DPW, everything needs a renovation. And we're determining gateway, we have 2-way traffic, we've eliminated left turns, we still have a single lane coming into the downtown instead of 2 lanes. The whole town is basically still in flux. Complete Streets never got finished. Had a little something to do with that. But it should have gotten finished, but not in the manner in which it was approved. East Milburn Avenue, east of Main Street, you can call it a runway or a freeway, but we need to do something with it, and it's more than just Taylor Park. I'll leave you with that, and I may come back and speak if I stay long enough on something else.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go online? Good evening.
Good evening, Perry Urso, Upper Milburn Avenue. I'd like to direct my comment to Mr. Cantor. If he could please define mediation and arbitration. Mr. Cantor was meeting with Attorney Feld. They held a meeting on May 7th, which was held in his office. Was that a conference or was that a mediation? In your provided time summaries, both yours and your associate's billings explanations do not coincide. Was there a court-appointed mediator or a third-party representative present? Did Attorney Feld put a settlement offer on the table for the township's consideration? In accordance to your denial letter dated May 13th, 2024, which was part of the proposed trial exhibits, please provide which TC representatives of the majority declined this offer. Also, I'd like to thank you for tabling tonight's resolution 24-227. But I would ask Mr. Cantor if you could opine whether this resolution should have been done by resolution or ordinance. And I'm just requesting clarification because this ordinance originally and its approved bylaws were originally approved by way of ordinance. What is the proper procedure? And if a resolution is correct, please explain why. Additionally, all fellow TCs, prior to taking any official action of the SID, I would ask each member of this body to thoroughly go through the SID agenda packets, carefully read closed executive session minutes, and all expenses to date. Does the SID entity currently have an active credit card? Does the executive director use a card supplied by the township to charge expenses like lunches in town? And would that be permissible or prohibited? I am also respectfully requesting, as I did at the past SID meeting, September 19th, 2024, that the previously denied July motion put on the table by Deputy Mayor Saccomundi and Committeewoman Prupis, that the SID reexamination motion be put back on the table for consideration prior to any further changes to this challenge of the validity of the ordinance and or its bylaws of the same. Mayor Romano, Deputy Mayor Saccomundi, committee members, Mr. Stoller, Ms. Prupis, and Mr. Cohen, do I have a second and a majority vote? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close public comment. Anyone like to respond? Committeeman Stoller?
Sure, I'll take a stab at this. First of all, Mr. Heller, welcome back. And thank you for all you're doing for the town. The corner looks great with Whisk and Willow. And we can't wait to see that open up. You know, it really means a lot to have you come and speak here because you put the money behind your projects. and you're investing a lot in our town, so thank you on behalf of myself and probably the rest of the TC as well. The only comment I want to make is to Mr. Feld in terms of, I'd like to explore at some point with our attorney, the delay in production of requests to affordable housing. You made that statement, so I have not seen that. If I had seen it, I would definitely bring it up. So I'd like to explore that on the record to understand how you deduce that and where that's coming from. So that's it. Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen?
I don't have anything.
Sure. So Mr. Cosgrove, will let our attorney respond to the question as to whether there's anything left pending before the appellate court or not. Mr. Heller, we actually looked into the costs of building a new building as opposed to renovating town hall. And it turns out that would have cost more, would probably taken longer. I encourage you to look at the plans for the new town hall because it has substantial changes. For example, this is not going to be the committee room anymore. And it's going to bring in functionality that was previously provided by the police department because we're going to have the municipal court in the new building. And what that's going to do is free up valuable space for the police department. So we absolutely did look at other options and none of them really made financial sense at this point. As far as Ms. Urso goes, I agree. I think we should re-examine the SID, but I'm at the mercy here of the other 4 TC members. So we'll see if that comes back or not. That's all I have. Thanks.
Committeeman Briggs? I have no. Mr. Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor. There were only 3, there were 3 motions pending in the Appellate Division. One was for the stay, the other one was to allow the township to file the appeal if it wasn't as of right, or determination whether or not it was as of right or interlocutory. So given that the Appellate Division denied our stay application, and they also found that our appeal was interlocutory and denied our leave to file an interlocutory appeal, there's nothing further pending in the Appellate Division currently. Unless the committee has any questions. I mean, well, I'm sorry, I think you had something.
Yeah.
The fair share housing documentation.
You can talk about.
I don't.
Production of.
I don't know what Mr. Feld's talking about.
Your license on the line.
No, but I'm certainly happy to. I'm so happy to discuss Mr. Feld, and I believe first I want to say that I work with many clerks throughout the state, and I'm municipal attorney in 4 towns, but 6 in my career, and you have one of the best clerks I've ever worked with, and her office and her administration handle open requests so professionally with such diligence. I don't quite understand where that came from, but I can assure you that I don't know what Mr. Feld is talking about, but I'm happy to talk to him after about what documents he doesn't think he received timely. But I know that, again, Milburn does a fantastic job with all its overhead. Really kudos, very hard work, and it's a lot of work. The other issue is the mediation issue. So we did have a case management conference, and mediation came up. First off, we did have a mediation. A mediation, in my estimation, we had an informal settlement discussion, and it's confusing to me how either there was a mediation or there wasn't. And then I'm asked, well, wasn't there an offer made? Well, if there was an offer made, why would there be an offer made if there wasn't a mediation? So obviously we met in the context of trying to determine a settlement. So if I was asked, was there an offer made, then obviously we were talking settlement. My recollection was, and the court actually agreed with us, it came up in our case management conference. The issue is very simple. It's whether or not the ordinance was passed procedurally properly and whether or not it was substantively proper. The court said there's really nothing to mediate to that aspect because either it was or it wasn't. There's no middle ground to whether or not the ordinance was passed. I don't recall Mr. Feld making any reasonable offer at that mediation. I did bring back into close, and we decided to continue to litigate and we are litigating, the court agreed with that in our last, so there is no avenue to mediate, and we did have a mediation, and I stand behind my time entries and my firm's time entries, as they're always, as we keep time accurately. And if the committee has any further questions, I'm happy.
Sure, I have a question. So Ms. Urso was talking about the difference between mediation and arbitration. So I'd like to just understand those two differences. One is, why I always thought an arbitrator was brought in. Can it still go to arbitration, or is this just down to simple procedural law now and the judge is gonna rule and then we go the next steps? How does that work?
So to me, again, this was an informal mediation, and I'm actually gonna go back and pull my communication, Mr. Phelps. This was a clear understanding that this was a mediation when we attended, and I'll certainly go back and look at that. But typically an arbiter will give an award, we'll tell the parties what they feel. We'll give an opinion. Sometimes it's binding, meaning what the arbiter says is the result, and you can appeal what the arbiter says. And sometimes it's a non-binding arbitration where the arbiter will say, this is what I think. A mediation, the mediator doesn't make a determination at the end. They just try to bring parties together. Again, this was an informal mediation. We didn't have a formal mediator, but certainly a formal mediator is not required to have a mediation. As was discussed, I guess there were some negotiations or some positions brought to that meeting. There was nothing else discussed other than trying to resolve the matter. So in my opinion, when two parties enter a room and attempt to resolve a matter and end the litigation, that is mediation.
Okay, and for lack of beating a dead horse here, when, you know, if you're conflating mediation and arbitration, typically in a procedural case, what you're saying is procedural, it's either done correctly or it's not. Does that typically go to arbitration, or how does that resolve itself?
So these cases are typically done by briefing, and the court has retracted this case. And the court again agreed, and there was an order entered, as Mr. Bell said, removing this from the trial track. Arbitration is typically more appropriate when there's damages claim, and typically in civil litigation, when there's money at stake and there is something to put a value on.
Okay, and then can you just expound upon Mr. Russo as a judge and why he was not, I guess, why he did not accuse himself? Is that a point of contest? I just want to understand all the pieces in full transparency of what's going on there.
The township has no issue with the Honorable Russo deciding this case. We would like to read Mr. Fell's papers if and when he does file a motion. Once we see Mr. Fell's motion and certifications provided, we certainly can review it and understand whether or not we're going to join in or oppose that motion or take no position on the motion. But currently the township has no issues with judiciary in Essex County as it relates to Honorable Russo.
So can you bring that decision to the township committee so that we can decide as a committee whether we feel that the judge needs to be, whether we need to agree that the judge should be recused or not?
Sure.
Great.
We may have to have a special meeting though, because it's going to be filed on 16 days notice, and we'll have 8 days to respond.
And that's only done after he's requested to recuse himself, correct?
Right, we'd have to wait for a motion from Mr. Fell. Currently township has no position. We'd have to review it, and obviously our law firm would have to also understand whether or not we want to file a motion against a Superior Court judge seeking recusal, whether or not we believe that judge can't be unfair, can't fairly rule on this matter.
Sure, I just want to avoid a situation where the other side says, well, you know, who decided that? So, you know, in the interest of full transparency, if it can come to us, take a vote on it, whichever way it goes, and, you know, then it's completely transparent.
I think we certainly asked Mr. Fell if he'd adjourn his motion long enough for us to entertain a closed session on that issue.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, I would think.
The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-223 through Resolution 24-226, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to Resolution 24-227 as revised? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-227?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
No.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-228 as revised? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-228?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeewoman Prupus, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2686-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2686-24. An ordinance to add Article 10-6, amending and supplementing Chapter 10 Property Maintenance of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Milburn. The purpose of this ordinance is to prohibit any planting, spread, or impact from bamboo and other noxious weeds in the township. In particular, bamboo can be damaging and impactful to neighboring properties, and these types of plantings will be prohibited after the effective date of this ordinance. In addition, the ordinance will address impacts to neighboring properties from bamboo that has already been planted or established prior to the effective date of this ordinance. Fines will be imposed for property owners that plant bamboo or noxious weeds or allow established planting to impact neighboring properties without proper abatement. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
Terry Heller, definitely a resident. I have bamboo. I've had it for about 10 years and I have it confined within plastic as directed by many ordinances throughout the state. First, I am against pretty much outlawing anything, perhaps other than cannabis, which the towns have the rights to, but there should be conditional uses for planting it subject to planting it properly. I'm not planting more of it, but I do maintain what I have. That said, within the ordinance on 10.6.5C, the failure to properly confine existing bamboo pursuant to the section may require the removal. It doesn't really define how to prevent it from spreading, and there is a method to doing so. I've seen the Livingston ordinance, I've referenced that before. Livingston's is pretty vague as well. There are other towns that have more substantial ordinances. I think the way this ordinance is written, for anyone who has the bamboo, it certainly precludes anyone from planting it. But if you have it, it's very ambiguous. I can tell you right now, I could fight this to the end of time as to what I'm doing to prevent it from spreading. I am preventing it by spreading by having the proper plastic barrier in the ground that goes down a certain depth. But this is not going to cause you to be able to enforce it properly. I would suggest finding better language. There are other towns that do have it. I didn't bring it with me tonight, but it does exist. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Second, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2687-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2687-24. Ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with the law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed and that the ordinance be adopted on the final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no old business, no new business. Public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Jeffrey Feld. I'll let the record as to Bear Property speak to itself, because a lot of things occurred prior to Mr. Cantor's involvement in the case, specifically in April 2021 and in September 17th, 2021. The then Essex County Civil Presiding Judge recommended to this township to mediate this dispute. The dispute involves a conflict of interest and whether the town gave proper notice, due diligence, and whether it complied with the state enabling statute. And it'll just, as I hear, as you said, you'd rather litigate and not mediate. As to certain other issues, we had a good time at the community policing event that really was not discussed. I think that was last Tuesday. And I bring up again how the community can help the police by having a drive to put the addresses on the Belgian blocks, because they've recommended that. I'm trying to wonder what the status of the private citizen municipal complaint investigation is. Are we ending into a Katie Brennan situation where a report is done, but the real people that have knowledge are never contacted? That goes back to Bridgegate, the sexual harassment, Katie Brennan, remember that. The referendum coming up, I still have issues. I've not heard conflict between the slide deck and the master plan and the protections that the citizens will have as to who decides how to use that money. Also, at the last Board of Education meeting, it was mentioned they obtained a feasibility study and made an open request. They will not produce it. I think that feasibility study might guide its data that people might want to have for the referendum. And I want to be clear, I have never attacked this clerk. I've always praised her. And to assist my questions, it goes to the time summaries. And I provide you all with the copies of those redacted time summaries. Look at it, because it has entries regarding Oprah. There's a special entries regarding Oprah for municipal attorneys. Also, I would recommend everyone look at an article in today's USA Today regarding Milton, Massachusetts, and the state of Massachusetts. There's a litigation where the state of Massachusetts is suing Milton, which is like a suburb like us, just outside of Boston, about doing affordable housing, and Milton is fighting back. I think that's really also, in January 2021, the BA presented a slide deck as cost, legal cost. He did not break out the high center, and I think with this planning board, if we can maybe know during that period, how much the town paid in high center litigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. Quick question, and I might have missed this. Did you have a thing on to accept the minutes? I'm thinking, I can't tell if was it skipped over? Or did I just kind of not register it? Yeah, it's on the.
I think the revising the agenda got.
Yeah.
that's a little
Yeah,
long.
and I just didn't know if you needed to do this here.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the September 17th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
So we have to end public comment first. officially.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Was there anybody else? I'm sorry.
Carrie Heller, President. I wasn't gonna come up again and speak about the town hall, but Councilman Frank, you addressed me, I will address back respectfully so. You're addressing this from a micro perspective of this building, and you mentioned consolidating with the police department. I'm suggesting that if we were back 200 years ago, would the town have put itself in harm's way in front of the flood, in front of the river? We wouldn't have built the town. If we were to start over again, we wouldn't put the town in the way. We're in actuality a dam. If we were to start over again right now, this town hall would not be in this location. It would not be this height, it would not be this footprint. You're still gonna be stuck with a lot of the infrastructure that's here. It sits in between two large parking lots on either side. The Rimback Storage Building came down for all the wrong reasons. Again, I compliment you guys in a lot of ways, but you still don't know a lot of the history as to how things came to be. And whether that Rimback Storage Building, which Annette may know, Alex perhaps may know, was demolished just to create a temporary parking lot for until lot 7, until the parking garage got built. Most don't know there was valet parking for a long time in lot 7 when parking was undersized. There's so much more to the history. This building would not be in this location. It might be on the DPW site, but that may not happen for other reasons. It might happen on, I think it's lot 12, is that the lot next to the library?
No.
9. It might be on top of the parking garage that's there, which is able to hold another floor, or maybe that top garage level would come off and 2 floors would be put on top of. We're not making great use of the land. Town halls don't need to be in downtown, whether it's Maplewood, whether it's Livingston, others. Berkeley Heights and Livingston, Berkeley Heights, if you haven't seen their town hall, it's a battleship. They have 4 municipal services, including the library, fire department, police department, and town municipal building all within one building. There are greater synergies, there's ratables that can come, 2 stories is not efficient. And I can assure you from the window factor, size, height of ceilings, things that are not going to be able to change here, it's not the right thing to do. And if it is the right thing to do, we haven't followed the right process to go about doing it. And the reason we're here and the reason I'm here tonight is because when Complete Streets occurred, whether this decision, whether the fair share housing, which again, Mr. Feld speaks of it often, certainly Alex was here, I was here that night, as to the process and Judge Gardner and the things, the sense of history is not here as to what occurred. And the number of reviews that have been done for replacing this building in some form or another. But there are other town halls that are much more efficient. Livingston overbuilt. Mikey Charles' offices are now in that building. But the last on the point for my 4 seconds is town councils don't know better than residents. And you're setting up all sorts of subcommittees and doing the right thing. You didn't do the right thing in terms of the process for selection.
Thank you.
This building.
Thank you. No one else? Okay. I will now close public comment. Would anyone like to respond?
Sure, real quick. Mr. McDonald, could we find out how much the previous high center litigation ended up costing the town, including any settlement agreements that we paid out? That would be helpful to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, there have been several, so which.
Well, I think it would probably be good to know
Some of
the
it may be
total
difficult,
number of it, yeah.
but I can look back to the more recent settlement agreement that took place on Jefferson, as well as anything. I mean, I'll pull what I can.
Okay, great. And then could you just give us a brief update on the investigation into the private citizen municipal complaint?
Yeah, so I heard from Mr. Robertson, who's doing the investigation. I think he is getting close to being complete. I know he has to reach out to the court. I don't know whether he's going to reach out to Mr. Feld or not. That is not really, I'm not involved in this except for checking in on it and just making sure that it's being worked on. But I do anticipate having that in probably the next 2 weeks.
Great. And then just so the public knows, so the town hall renovation, this is not something that just happened abruptly and in a vacuum. We had public information sessions. We had multiple presentations on it. There was really a lot of time that went by for people to give input and opinions about it. And ultimately the township committee weighed all of its options and we made a decision, and the decision has been made. We're moving forward with it. Thanks.
Sure, okay. First, thank you to Mr. Feld for sending that USA today article in Milton, Massachusetts. I have some friends who live in Milton, and I'll reach out to them, but it shows that this is a much larger problem than just Millburn, New Jersey. Mr. Heller, thank you for those comments. We did push back quite a bit. Obviously, I'm not a real estate guy, but I'm a value guy. So understanding those differences and having the town hall right here versus next door versus on lot 9 certainly came into our discussion. Obviously, putting it outside of downtown though, in over at 22 East Willow or somewhere near the mall, et cetera, just didn't make sense. So that's why it's staying in this perimeter. I would welcome you to invite you to sit down with myself and maybe Alex and kind of go through some of the points that you brought to light, because a lot of them were addressed, but they're certainly important, and we want to tell you how we got here. Obviously, we had multiple public sessions, et cetera. My phone's always open, and I'd love to host you for that discussion, because I think you bring so much valuable information and history. We can't forget the history to our town. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so now, may I have a motion to approve the September 17th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So,
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
aye.
Okay. Sorry about that, thank you.
Did you have one for three of them?
Oh,
Is that on the finish?
okay, so we'll open public comment again. Yes, sorry. Good evening. Can you put your camera on, please? And we can't hear you either. Are you there? Nope. No,
Can
okay.
you try to open it again, or did you fall off?
Yeah, I mean, they did like multiple attempts to.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will now close public comment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.